Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Capital Catch Up. It's April 26th. So last week was deadline week. Bills had to be heard in the opposite chamber. So if you were a House bill, you had to be heard on the Senate. Senate had to be heard on House. If you passed out of those bodies and had no amendments, then those bills actually go to the governor's desk. And the governor has signed or vetoed more than 200 measures, and there are 115 measures waiting on his desk. And then there's an additional 300 bills that were heard in the opposite chamber, but there were amendments, changes to the bills. And so those bills have to go back to their original House. There's also 50 bills that will make up the budget. I kind of count last year as an off year because of the pandemic. But in 2019, when they were creating the budget for 2020, they used 20 bills to make up that budget. So what we kind of know now is there's 50 bills that have been put into the Joint Committee of Appropriations and Budgets, and that is where the budget will come from. So everything else that has not made it through all of these process is considered dormant. And so that includes Senate Bill 634. These are the things I had at my house to celebrate. Whoa! I would pop these if I could, but I might scare someone in the house. But so Senate Bill 634, the bill that we have talked to you all about that impacted how educators sign up to be a member of any professional teaching organization, including OEA, did not make it through the Senate, or did not make it through the House. It made it through the Senate, but it did not make it through the House. So we are ecstatic, and we couldn't have done that. We could not have defeated that bill without you. So thank you so much for helping us beat legislation that negatively impacts our educators. So this week, I kind of talked about this, but I thought it might be better if I just shared my screen. So the way that a bill becomes a law, we are now in this final process. So if you look over to the left-hand side, you can see what happens now. So it's returned to the opposite body. If it's without amendments, it goes to the governor's desk. But if it is with amendments, there's two things that can happen. The House can refuse what the Senate amended, and then that bill will go to conference committee. And if it goes to conference committee, they have to then agree upon the language together in the bill, and then it moves through. And if they can't agree upon the language, it's dead. Or the House could take up the bill with the amendments and vote on it and passes, and then it goes to the governor's desk. So I thought that would be helpful for you all to kind of see where that process is and why it gets really wonky at the end. So we still track all of our education bills through this process, and we'll just slowly watch it move. The budget has to be done by the last Monday in May. So that gives us, I think, just 5 more weeks until session is completely over. But the hope is that session and the budget are kind of decided in early May, and that session ends potentially early, but we don't know. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so what action can you take this week? 2 things. This is a great time to reach out to your legislators and tell them why funding education is so important. We are one of the biggest apportionments of the budget, and so it's a great time just to talk about how and why public schools are impactful and why that budget matters and why we should fund our schools. The other thing that I thought would be interesting for you all is that this last week at the Capitol, they unveiled the new redistricting map. So every 10 years with the census, you have to look at the population and realign districts in order to have, the population in House and Senate kind of equitably distributed throughout the state. So a couple things that did happen. One, House District 36, which is Sean Roberts' district. He represents Pawhuska, Hominy, Winona. His district is actually being moved. House District 36 will now move to the Oklahoma City metro area. And then Senate District 18, which is currently Senator Kim David's district, which represents Wagner area, will also be moved to the metro area. So that was kind of the biggest changes, but all across the state, district boundaries were redrawn. And so I would encourage you, we are going to share the websites that you can go to look up your House and Senate district to see how they changed. And you may have received a new senator or House member, who knows? But they're also, this is a time where they're taking feedback. So if you see anything on the drawings that cause you concern, or you feel like they did a great job, you can write your support to them too. So I just thought the action of the week, we think knowing who your legislator is important. And we think understanding the process for how districts are drawn is very important too. So check that out. And if you have feedback, give them feedback. So that's this week's edition of Capital Catch Up. Thanks for waiting for me to share my screen. I appreciate that. And let us know if you have any questions about the budget process, or if you're hearing feedback from your legislator when you write them, and tell them why funding public education is important, and hopefully their feedback to you is they completely agree. So have a great Monday, and we'll see you next week.